starting off well.
Okay, good morning, and welcome to the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners meeting. This is a beautiful morning on August the 27th, 2019. On my left, we have Commissioner Deb Shore and Commissioner Sean Flowerday, who is also the Vice Chair. And on my right, we have Commissioner Krista Yoakum and Commissioner Rick Vest.
Good morning.
Yes, and I am Commissioner Roma Amundson, Chair of the Board. Would you join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and thank you so much. And Madam Clerk, will you begin the agenda?
Sure. Before we begin, I'd like to note that a copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the wall at the rear of the hearing room. Additionally, a copy of all written material to be discussed at today's open meeting is available from the county clerk's staff at the front of the hearing room. These materials can also be viewed on the county's website at lancaster.ne.gov. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held on Tuesday, August 20th, 2019.
Move approval. I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any corrections? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Yoakum,
Yes.
Vest,
Abstain.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0 with one abstention. Item 2 is approval of all claims processed through August 27th, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Yoakum,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Next are consent items. These are routine business items that are expected to be adopted without dissent. Any individual item may be removed for special discussion and consideration by a commissioner or any member of the public without prior notice. Unless there's an exception, these items will be approved as one with a single vote of the Board of Commissioners. These items are approval of authorizing and directing the Lancaster County Purchasing Agent to correct nunc-pro-tunc, a clerical error in County Contract C19-0601 by interlineating C170876 in place of C175010. Also amendments to the following county contracts: C12703 with Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for wireless voice service, wireless broadband service, accessories, and equipment. C170812 with Ron Turley Associates, Inc. for the RTA Fleet Management Software Contract. C160498 with Paramount Linen for annual service rental and cleaning of mats, various linens, and related items. We also have amendments to the following county contracts for annual repair services for construction and purpose-built equipment. These are for contracts C18510 with Acker Diesel Repair, LLC, C18511 with Brown Heavy Equipment, Inc., C18495 with Hamilton Equipment Company, C18549 with Johnson Diesel Repair, C18582 with Murphy Tractor and Equipment Company, Inc., C18536 with NMC Inc., C18537 with RDO Truck Center, C18512 with Rose Equipment LLC, C18496 with Titan Machinery Inc., C18497 with Truck Center Companies Lincoln, C18498 with Vermeer High Plains, and finally a grant contract with the Hub Central Access Point for young adults for the Project Hire program.
Move approval of the consent items.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent items. Please call the roll.
Yoakum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Next is a special presentation, wheel tax briefing, Lancaster County Engineer Pam Dingman and Kent Seacrest.
And while they're getting set up, I would just like to take this time to thank you all for your interest in this proceeding and your attendance at the Board of Commissioners meeting. You are reminded, however, that this is a presentation to the board regarding the concept of the county wheel tax. Obviously, this is an informational meeting. The public can see this information at this particular meeting, and it will also be on TV, and so you can refer back to it at any time. There will be public hearings on September the 11th at 7 o'clock at the Waverly Community Foundation Building. This will be held to include citizens and leadership of the non-incorporated villages and the SID officials from Prairie Home, Rokeby, Cheney, Emerald, Agnew, Holland, Walton, Princeton, Kramer, and Martell. Another meeting with the same communities will be held on Thursday, September 12th at 7 o'clock at the Hickman Community Center. On Thursday, September the 12th at 4 p.m., a community meeting will be held at the Lancaster County Engineers Conference Room to inform the leadership of the Lancaster County Incorporated communities of Hallam, Firth, Rock, Sprague, Raymond, Malcolm, Davie, Denton, Panama, and Bennett regarding the key components of the wheel tax concept. Hearings in Waverly and Hickman will also follow in October. Today's presentation, though, is directed to the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners. Constituents in the audience are welcome to voice their opinions regarding the county wheel tax following the presentation and with decorum. However, as this is not a hearing, I, as chair of the Board of Commissioners, will limit the speaker presentations to 3 minutes per speaker. The period of comment will last no longer than 1 hour. I also remind the speakers that this is an opportunity for them to present their points of view. This is not a time to engage in a question and answer session with the commissioners. If constituents do have questions, the commissioners, as well as Engineer Pam Dingman and our legal representative Kent Seacrest, will be glad to individually respond to questions following the conclusion of our business meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Okay, thank you. And for the presentation.
Good morning, Pam Dingman, Lancaster County Engineer. And as Commissioner Amundson has previously stated, I'm here this morning to talk to you about the Safe Roads Joint Public Agency. And I will add that, of course, a JPA for a wheel tax has not been created, that this, of course, is a study group, and I am here this morning to present what our study found. Just to start off with, I'd like to talk about who was selected to be on this study committee. Mayor Doug Hanson from the City of Hickman, Silas Clark, City of Hickman Administrator, Mike Warner, City of Waverly Mayor, Stephanie Fisher, City of Waverly Administrator, Roma Amundson, Lancaster County Commissioner, and Rick Fest, Lancaster County Commissioner, as well as myself. And then, to facilitate this rowdy bunch, Kent Seacrest, who is at the podium with me today. And so I'm going to talk about the engineering issues with the wheel tax and some of the projections. I am an engineer, as you are all aware. Kent is an attorney, and so I'm going to stick to the engineer questions, and we'll let Kent stick to the attorney questions, because although engineers sometimes like to pretend they're attorneys, it never ends well, and vice versa. So I'd like to really start off with first how we ended up here today. And so about a year ago, we had a task force that was assembled to study infrastructure in Lancaster County. And what I'm showing you on this slide is a map of only 3 years of crashes in Lancaster County on our roads. So each blue dot indicates a crash. I think that's significant because I really think that we need to focus on the safety in our roads. As we're aware, we've had a number of tragic fatalities in our community, and it's really time to start focusing on how do we improve our roads and our bridges for a better future. So significant findings from the task force, and I think what was significant is in particular with bridges. I had been discussing with the commissioners for a few years that I felt our critical shortfall for bridges was $100 million a year. According to the task force study, that critical needs only, and I'm going to say prior to the bomb cyclone of March of 2019, was $200 million. I think it's easy for us to know that that critical needs gap has increased since that event. What does that gap mean? Well, it really means that our shortfall for bridge funding is $9 million a year for the next 20 years. That's 76 bridges that are in need of replacement, and that, of course, is before the record-breaking weather event. What does it mean for roads? Well, what it means for roads is about $100 million shortfall over the next critical needs only, or $5 million per year for the next 20 years. This is right from the task force findings, and I have highlighted at the bottom the main concern. While added revenue from a wheel tax and a sales tax would help, the total funding expected to result from these new sources would not solve Lancaster County's funding gap. In addition, the study recommended that we create a safety improvement fund and that we focus our money on safety improvements. In particular, the highlighted part on the slide says the program should also develop a performance-based selection policy to target the county's scarce resources towards the locations with the greatest needs for improvement. And the good news is we've really done that with the safety study for Saltillo. In addition, we've done a safety study on 148th Street and South 68th Street, and there's many other corridors that I would like to focus on in the county. The task force also recommended that we do a capital improvement plan. And I think it's important because oftentimes constituents call in and they have a concern about a road or a bridge, and they're told to come to the 1 and 6 public hearing. And to some extent, that's a little bit insincere, because the 1 and 6 is simply the money that has been allocated to the county engineer, projected forward 5 years. It doesn't speak to our needs in county engineering, and I think that's been a critical gap for us in Lancaster County. So the task force suggested that we create a CIP, and in that we include a discussion of prioritization of activities and the planning cycle for future improvements throughout the county. Now, as we talk about motor vehicle tax, you are aware that the City of Lincoln already has a motor vehicle tax. Attached on the slide is a slide with 2 columns, one that is the City of Lincoln tax and the other that is the proposed JPA tax. And what we're really proposing with this study group is that the numbers remain the same with the exception of farm vehicles. And what we're asking is that farm vehicles be taxed at a rate that is approximately 50% of what a commercial vehicle would be taxed at. And I want to note that on this slide, and I was not able to change this, it's not a farm-plated commercial truck, it's just a farm-plated truck. And so Kent and I will have to work together because I actually stole this from some of his information, so I wasn't able to edit it. Note that the top one, just farm-plated, just a farm truck, is $74, not $111. $74, of course, being the lowest that we were charging for a motor vehicle. Here it is in a little bit larger summary, what we would propose charging for farm-plated vehicles. Please note that for vehicles weighing 8 tons or more, a commercial vehicle would be charged $370 a year, and what we're proposing is that a farm vehicle of equivalent weight would be charged $185 a year. And why is this? And I'm sure later this morning we're going to hear a lot about this, but I did add this slide because I wanted to talk a little bit about roads and bridges and our need to modernize in Lancaster County. We still have a significant number of bridges that are WPA era bridges, work progress bridges. They're on spread footings. It's like your house. If we're to look at what was around in the 1930s, we look at this this farm truck with the horse in the back of it. My grandfather had one of those. It, he put 20 to 25 bales on the back of it when he went to town to sell his hay. That's not what we have today. You also see the tanker truck on the top, which is actually from probably about the 1940s or 50s. Same thing. Our vehicles have gotten much bigger. What you see in the middle of the screen is actually a bridge failure that happened in North Dakota last month. What happened? Historic truss bridge. We have 12 of those currently in Lancaster County. The tractor trailer. The tractor made it over the bridge. The trailer ended up in the creek. What do you see on the bottom picture here? This is an accident from Iowa, one of my peer counties last year. Same scenario. Grain truck came across. He actually made it across the bridge, fortunately enough, and then the bridge completely failed. These are tragic kind of accidents that we're really experiencing around the nation due to a lack of modernization of our system. On the bottom, you'll see a modern grain truck, which can weigh as much as 40 tons, and therein lies the issue. Our bridges were simply not designed for this at the time they were put into service. So, how much revenue would this proposed tax generate for Lancaster County? Well, based on numbers that we received from the Lancaster County Treasurer in July of 2019, and we assumed a number of variants with these numbers, if Waverly and Hickman were to create a JPA with Lancaster County, we would estimate that it would be about $3.4 million. What could that do for Lancaster County? Well, in particular, it could do a lot of projects that have been laid out on South 68th Street from a safety study that was done in October of 2018, as well as an additional safety study that was done on 148th Street from approximately Highway 2 all the way into Amberley and Waverly. And then it could help us with bridge replacement based on opening needed closed bridges, scour critical bridges, and bridges with a sufficiency rating of less than 50. I do offer that this possible 20-year layout of projects for Lancaster County, starting off with safety improvements on 68th Street and 148th Street, and then following with a couple years of bridge projects and so forth. I think it's important that we have metrics in government. We sometimes miss that. We do still need to have measurements for our success. I think that there's a lot of calculus in government. There's a lot of calculus in my budget. And when we start to talk about how do we simplify this to let people know that we are making progress, I think our three main metrics need to be a reduction in overall crashes and fatalities in Lancaster County. I think we need to work on a reduction of the miles of gravel road with an average daily traffic count of more than 300 cars a day. We currently have 28 miles that have more than 300 cars a day. And then in addition to that, I think we need to focus on our bridges. We've had a lot of issues with our bridges the last several years. We've been hit with record-breaking weather events. My staff likes to kind of mess with me a little bit and say that of the top 10 significant weather events in Lancaster County's history, 4 of them have happened during my tenure as county engineer. Now, I don't know if that makes me the luckiest person or the most unlucky person, but I know that that's what I've been dealt by God, and I'm going to figure out a way to deal with it. So the bridges. We currently have several bridges with a sufficiency rating of less than 50 in Lancaster County. It's a 100-point scale. In the long-range transportation plan, we have said that we'll focus our funding on bridges that have a sufficiency rating of less than 50. In addition, we have a number of scour critical bridges and structurally deficient bridges. I think what we need to do is we need to look at our overall bridge inventory, and we need to measure our success with getting bad bridges off our inventory and replaced. And I will add that some of these bridges fit in all 3 of these categories. So how many closed bridges does Lancaster County have? Well, we currently have 8 bridges that are closed that are in a current or past budget for replacement, and I'm going to include the budget that I think you may pass this morning in that 8 number. In addition, we have 2 bridges that are closed that we believe we'll be able to repair this fall. I'm excited about getting those open again. Right now, we have 10 bridges that are closed with no available funding source. And I believe I have 3 bridges that we may never be able to justify on a cost-benefit analysis, the replacement and reconstruction of them. With that being said, what do we have for scour critical or scour susceptible bridges? So I just want to note a little bit about scour because sometimes it's a difficult thing to communicate to the public in particular. Scour is the most common cause of bridge failure during flooding. Scour occurs when water moves around the abutment wall or the piers of a bridge. In the U.S., there's about 600 bridge failures a year from scour. So this is serious. That's why we have a number of bridges with a critical plan of action. They're actually open, and we're required to keep that plan of action because they've been designated as scour critical by the federal government and the Nebraska Department of Transportation. So we currently have 23 scour critical bridges. We have another 39 that are scour susceptible. Scour susceptible is a Lancaster County engineering definition. We went ahead and started tagging bridges as scour susceptible if they were of the same construction type, on the same creek, in the same area as a bridge that had been defined as scour critical. And indeed, being very aggressive with those bridges has kept Lancaster County safer. I want to note that the bomb cyclone of March of 2019 added 20 scour susceptible bridges. So we have 20 additional bridges that we're watching in any storm event now. What does scour critical look like? I get a lot of phone calls. I've driven by that bridge. It looks absolutely fine. I will assure you that if we close it, we've had a critical engineering finding that we have filed with the Nebraska Department of Transportation, and they have forwarded to the Federal Highway Administration. That means that if we close a bridge, it's closed for a reason. This is Bridge T171 in the May of 2015 storm. This bridge, which actually had a scour critical rating of 10, which means almost a 0 chance of scour, right? It turns out it's over an abandoned oxbow from Salt Creek. However, when the water got high enough that it started flowing around this bridge, it became scour critical. And you'll note the bottom picture with the hole, that is a scour hole that has propagated to the top. Sometimes we call them more commonly sinkholes. The pink line on the bottom really dictates how big that hole is underneath. This is something that could hurt you. The photo on the top indicates a truck that actually went around the barricade, and maybe this guy had watched a little too much Dukes of Hazzard, I don't know. It turns out that bridges are in low points, not in high points, which makes them a little harder to jump with your truck. Again, not like the Dukes of Hazzard. This gentleman obviously didn't make it, and we're fortunate that he wasn't severely injured. I often also hear with scour critical bridges, it's not like one of these has ever fallen in after you've closed it. Well, actually one has. And so this is Bridge G144 on Bluff Road between 27th and 40th. It is currently under reconstruction, but about a couple weeks after we closed it, this is actually a 3 to 5 foot hole in front of the bridge that fell in when the scour area propagated to the top. And needless to say, if you're going along at 50 miles an hour in the dark and you hit this, you're going to be hurt. And that is always my top concern for Lancaster County. I will take all reasonable standards of care to ensure that the public is safe. Lancaster County bridge sufficiency. So we actually have 17 bridges that have less than a 50 sufficiency as a whole. 3 of those bridges are in a current or past budget. 14 of those bridges have no available funding. These are the bad bridges. When they get closed, it should really be no surprise to anyone. You may note that on this map, G111, which is located in between Waverly and Lincoln, has been reopened, but what's significant about that bridge is it was a 27 on a 100-point scale. We really got to get those off our system. And in fact, in the last 5 years, we have. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to let up on my pressure to build new bridges, commissioners. I'm sorry, I'm like that. We really have gotten most of our 20s and actually most of our 30s off system. Now, we still have a number that are in the 40s, and that's what we need to work for, to meet that standard that our bridges that are open and under service are more than a 50. I want to talk a little bit about Lancaster County daily traffic counts. This is one of my favorite maps, although most people it makes a little crazy. It dictates intersection movements, it dictates traffic counts and growth patterns in Lancaster County. If I'm to simplify it a little bit, this is what it looks like if I sort the map out and I only show areas where we have more than 300 cars a day. And so this actually is last year's map because I don't have this year's new map finished yet with traffic counts. But here's where you note that not only do we have 28 miles of Lancaster County road that are not paved with more than 300 cars a day, we actually have 7 miles with more than 400 cars a day. 98th Street being one of the most significant stretches that comes in consistently, well over 400 cars, as well as North 162nd Street. And the sad story with North 162nd Street from Highway 6 to the county line is the other counties have paved the road. If we could connect that, there could be a paved county route to Wahoo and Fremont. We actually graded that as a farm to market route in 1978. 1978. So when people call me and they say they've been waiting for pavement since 1978, they're not exaggerating. They've been waiting. I want to talk a little bit about the safety study on 148th Street. There were some surprises in this safety study. I really, quite frankly, expected the study to come back and tell us we needed to do some additional grading on 148th Street and that we needed to put shoulders on it. I didn't expect that the growth in this corridor between the east corridor of the city and the city of Waverly and the east part of our county was so significant that the study would suggest that we make this corridor a 4-lane divided road at a cost of $46 million a year. $46 million a year. Now, typically what I've come forth and asked the board for funding for has been somewhere between $1 and $2 million a year for new pavement. That has been a bit of a stretch for us on some years, and I'm trying to figure out now, how do we stretch to $47 million? In addition, there were a number of safety improvements suggested for this corridor, mainly roundabouts and other improvements. So if I look at the safety study for South 68th Street, I have some similar things going on. So what we do know in both of these corridors is that we have a significant speeding problem in Lancaster County. And at the 85th percentile of traffic, that we're going 70 to 72 miles an hour in these corridors, and these are designed for 55 miles an hour. So we all need to strive in Lancaster County for the safety of the public to slow down. However, that being said, we also need to look at roundabouts on South 68th Street and some additional improvements. Shoulders to South 68th Street from the 1.5 miles north of Hickman all the way down to Firth is an estimated cost of about $9.8 million. What we would look at over the 20 years of forecasted wheel tax for projects, road projects only, would be the projects shown on this map. The circles indicate roundabouts, and the red lines indicate pavement and shoulders. So in addition to this briefing with you, I've also already had a briefing with the city of Waverly, with the city of Hickman, and then in coming weeks, we will have a briefing with the community that lives north of O Street and the community that lives south of O Street. And with that, I guess lastly, I'd like to add, when I spoke to you at the budget meeting in May, I stated that Lancaster County, if we're to look at percentage of bad bridge by square foot of bridges, Lancaster County rates 65th out of 93. I don't think there's any other area that any of us would strive to be 65th at. We're one of the most populated counties in the state. We have to do something about this. The time is now. I don't really like it. I don't. But we have to come up with some solution to start moving forward. And that is why I am thankful that the board chose to fund the infrastructure task force. I'm thankful that the board chose to fund a safety study on 148th Street and on South 68th Street. And I'm thankful that the board chose to fund the wheel tax study. And so I want to thank you for your leadership and acknowledging that it is time to move forward. Kent?
Thank you very much, Pam. My name's Kent Seacrest, and bottom line is this study committee is bringing forth a recommendation to create a joint public agency between three governments, the city of Hickman, the city of Waverly, and then Lancaster County. And it's for the sole purpose of construction, repair, maintenance of roads and bridges and other related safety concerns. That's the bucket. That's the narrow bucket. It doesn't go to any other purposes that you are responsible for. We are calling this suggested name Safe Roads Joint Public Agency depending on the next stage, if it goes to the next stage and it gets approved, the timing, it could be as early as January, it could be later, depending on what is in the best interest of everybody involved. This will affect everybody in the county except the city of Lincoln and the incorporated villages and cities. They would not be impacted by this proposal. And Pam's gone over the schedule and how it came about and how it affects farm-plated vehicles along the way. I just want to point out that this is raising about $3.3 million we project. The task force said we had a $15 million annual shortfall, so that would be a 22% approach to the problem. So we're still leaving behind the balance of 78% that we would someday need to maybe solve as well. So this is not a full Band-Aid, as Pam has called it some days. This is just a partial, but it's an important partial to get going. And you have seen the proposed capital improvement plan. That's, again, a tentative suggestion. It would be actually need to be approved by the JPA. And it would follow, if this is approved, the procurement process. We would be following the county's procurement process. So you have proper checks and balances in place. It would allow revenue bonds to be issued if that made sense to go forward. It would be made up basically, have other safeguards, public records would have to be complied with, the open meetings law would have to be complied with. And what we're suggesting at the moment, assuming no other incorporated village or city wants to come in, and we're going to test that and join, but if they don't, right now we're suggesting it would have be comprised of 7 members. These must be elected officials under the JPA statutes. So we'd have 7 elected officials, 2 from Waverly, 2 from Hickman, and 3 from Lancaster County Board of Commissioners to make this go forward and make it to be proper. Now the voting gets interesting because what we're also suggesting is to make it sure no one of the 3 gets taken advantage of by the others. We are saying any vote would at least require 1 vote from Hickman, 1 vote from Waverly, and 2 votes from Lancaster County. So if Lancaster County has 3 representatives, 2 of them must agree to go forward on any type of action or proposal, levying a wheel tax or the capital improvement budget or anything else that they need to decide to go forward. They would have rules of governance, kind of like bylaws, so that you have those same type of procedures in place by statute. We would do something very similar so that the JPA follows very similar practices, a best practice type. We would have audits annually, so just like you would have. And what we're doing, and this might be confusing, everybody thinks this is approving the wheel tax. This is all we're doing today is what we call phase 1. I call it the 80-20 principle. We're trying to put the guts, the 80%, the real substance in front of you. But there's a lot of little minutia that we would really need to go forward if we do create the JPA that we would also then bring forth publicly for public hearing. But we felt, let's take this in 2 steps. If the first 80% of details make sense to you, then, and along with the city of Hickman, along with the city of Waverly, we would then go into phase 2 and really write up what we call the JPA agreement and details and the governance documents with your attorney, the city of Hickman attorney, and city of Waverly attorneys. But we didn't want to go through that exercise and expense if this didn't make sense. So we're just kind of doing what I call public information testing to be sure that it does make sense to then want to go into what we call the phase 2 details, which would then, as a result of that, come back with the formal documents and have to go through the city of Hickman, city of Waverly, and Lancaster County Board hearing process and voting process to see whether or not it gets approved. The we talked to you, we've got more public engagement on this first phase. We're not talking second phase. It'll have its own set of public engagement as well, but we just want to point out the task force, which came up with the original recommendation of a wheel tax. We met with them, presented this recommendation, this phase one recommendation, and they voted 8-1 in support. They thought it had merit and recommends it to go forward. And with that, I'm here, Pam's here to answer any questions or address any concerns.
Okay, commissioners, do any of you have questions that you would like to ask these two? Yes, Deb.
You mentioned other villages, and your comment was, we'll test that later. Can you expand upon what you meant by that?
Well, I think it's September 12th. We will be meeting with the other incorporated villages and in cities and go over this recommendation and ask them, do they have similar kind of farm-to-market road issues? What's the challenge here is those cities that are incorporated in villages cannot spend their tax dollars outside their city limits. And that's the real issue, because a lot of their citizens, a lot of their farmers, a lot of their traffic is going from their city to somewhere else, Lincoln or other markets. But yet, if there's a road need, they can't spend their city dollars outside their city. This is why I think you're seeing the city of Waverly and the city of Hickman say, we've got these farm-to-market needs that we have to address from a safety point of view and improve. And we think maybe some of those other incorporated cities or villages might have similar. If they do, they could join us and talk about how to blend it together so that we could address what I call their road network that's not inside their city limits, but right outside, that affects their kids going to and from school and people going to and from work.
Thank you.
Sean?
No.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate that. That was a very thorough briefing. And
Thank you.
if you would hang around till the end?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and as I mentioned, people in the audience at this point in time, if you would like to come forward, you have 3 minutes to make your presentation. And at 20 minutes of 11, we will close a public comment session for this.
Well, thank you, Chairman Amundson. It's a little different being on this side of the podium. For 30 years, I sat in your seats, and wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of you for serving. Commissioner Shore, you've been at it a lot of years already, too. What I want to talk to you about this morning is, and thank you for giving us a chance to learn more about the proposed county wheel tax, and to tell you why we are deeply troubled about this new proposed tax. First of all, the wheel tax is not a fair or equitable tax. It is an extension of the property tax. If you own property, you own these cars, trucks, and vehicles, then you're going to have to pay this additional tax. For 30 years as a Lancaster County Commissioner, I always had to try to address the problem. People in Lincoln said, we pay a wheel tax. You live outside the city limits, you don't pay a wheel tax. And they see it as being unfair. Well, I can see where they're coming from, but by the same token, where do you apply a tax and where do you stop it? A huge percentage of the population of Wahoo, Beatrice, and Seward come into Lincoln every day and earn their keep here. Many of them are employed in Lincoln. And those of us in rural Lancaster County, we're also helping pay for the roads and bridges in Lancaster County, because everything that we buy, we have no commercial base in Lancaster County in the rural areas. In Malcolm, I can't buy any clothes. Right now, our Branched Oak restaurant is closed. Can't even buy a meal in Malcolm. So virtually everything we buy, we're paying city sales tax on. And I really had a tough argument with Mayor Johans when he came in. He wanted to impose a county wheel tax as well. And I showed him that Carol and I paid city sales tax on $22,000 worth of farm supplies that we bought at Orchland and Tractor Supply Company. I guess I'd like to just say that Farmers and ranchers, rural residents, as part of our business, we have 3 to 4 times more vehicles than the average rural resident. And we did a survey, and as originally proposed, the wheel tax would have an impact of over $3,400 on one farmer on a large operation, and a small operation was $1,360. So this is a new additional tax. Agriculture is going through some tremendous precarious times right now. Our young farmers are operating on about $13 million less income in the state of Nebraska than they had 2 years ago. Farm prices and the economic of agriculture are not good right now. We ask you to please take another look at how you do this. Do want to compliment you and urge you to approve the county engineer's budget. She's a good engineer as far as bringing this to you and telling you how the magnitude of the problem. I want to commend you for, in your proposed budget, to raise her budget by $3 million. It's sorely needed. Thank you. Any questions?
Larry, could you technically introduce yourself for the record?
Larry Hitkins, former Lancaster County Commissioner, and I live at 8600 Northwest 112th, Malcolm, Nebraska. And now I do what I want to do instead of what I have to do. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, Craig Johnson, 10365 West Van Dorn, Denton, Nebraska 68339. Obviously, the presentation indicated the dire need for monies being spent within the county. My concern centers around a couple of things that I did not see in the study. It was alluded to a little bit here this morning about the villages and what happens if they decide they do not want to implement. Of course, as we know, and has not been stated also in the study, which I was interested about, is statute 18-1214 is what covers the ability for cities and villages to implement a wheel tax. There is no authority under that statute for the county to do so. It's only been referred to in the study as being governmental approvals in the future. So my question would be, and what you're going to receive at those meetings, so the study group needs to be prepared when they have those meetings, is how is this going to be voted on? Is it going to be voted on since it's a tax? Is the statute going to have to be amended, which I think it would need to be? Is that then going to apply to all the counties in the state of Nebraska or just for Lancaster County? So there's a couple of things here I think that are going to come up at that meeting that need to be prepared to be addressed. I happen to be on that red road on the west side, and I'll just make the comment is that the meeting isn't split properly. It's north of O and south of O. This county should be split north and south on Highway 77. There's a west county and an east county for road needs. Most of the money is going to the east county, east side of the county. You can see it on the map. There's as many accidents, according to that, on the west side as there is the east side, just about according to the dots. So I think there needs to be some thought put into place about how to ensure that the monies that are being paid by the west side of the county are being attributed within the county itself. I don't think there's been any thought to that, at least in depth, as shown by the study. West Van Dorn was actually graded to be paved a number of years ago. It's 10 feet, at least 10 feet wider than the road is supposed to be, because it's not paved, it's gravel. Well, unfortunately, and Ms. Shore and Dingman are well aware of the condition of that road at times, because I've provided pictures to them, that road isn't graded properly. It can't be graded properly because it's not profiled properly. So it either needs to be paved or it needs to be regraded to be a gravel road. It's in limbo right now. And according to the study, that won't even be done until 2026. That's if any monies are even available. It's been pushed back and pushed back on the long-range plan a number of times. But that wasn't my point primarily to come up here. It was to point out the fact that if the villages don't go in and the tax were for some reason to be approved, again, I'm asking how that approval process is going to take place. They should be prepared at the meeting to address some of those concerns. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Rod Holman, 6175 West Whitstruck Road, Martell, 68404. I was a member of the task force when it was first formed, except for some type of spelling error on my name. I wasn't invited to the first 4 meetings. And I was invited to the last one, and I expressed my concern on the rate structure. The wheel tax had already been decided, so actually the ag community had no voice or representation on this. Most of the people that voted for this actually won't be impacted by the wheel tax. But I expressed my concern over the rate structure, and fortunately it was reduced to 50%, but it's still pretty high. In my case, as a small farmer, $1,400. And most of the vehicles that I will pay on drive less than 1,000 miles a year. So they're not on the roads much. But also, one thing that concerns me is that this was started to fix bridges and roads, but all of a sudden I see on the schedule that of the first 9 projects, only 2 are bridges. The rest are roundabouts or shoulders. So, you know, I think the whole purpose of this was not just to fix bridges to get money for the roundabouts. And I'm surprised. I thought maybe there was federal money for roundabouts, but it looks like the whole cost of them is on the chart. Another concern of mine is that using county crews versus contractors. A county crew, according to the chart we were given, they only do 5 a year at a cost of $3,500 a year for a total cost of $20,000. But contractors are given 43 culverts to do at a cost of $45,000 at a cost of $1.9 million. I think that if the county would reestablish one of their bridge crews, they had 2 before, have eliminated one of them, and the one they have now just does paving repair. I think that the bridge crews, you'd have enough money to fund them and still would have $1 million left over for bridges. I think instead of raising taxes, we've been taxed to death. The average farmer in Lancaster County, their property taxes have increased 233%, whereas the residential owners and commercial, only 33%. So, you know, where did that windfall of money go? Some of that should have been designated for the bridges. I think that needs to be looked at more carefully, especially doing more of the work ourselves. The scouring, I know, can be fixed by a lot of our crews. I think bridges were closed and are still closed that probably could be open. So I think this needs to be looked at more carefully. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for serving as county commissioners. I know what it's like to serve on boards. I serve on plenty of them, but at least you guys are getting paid. I don't get paid on the ones I serve on. My name is Dave Nielsen. I'm a 4th-generation farmer and landowner residing at 70th and Raymond Road. And the biggest complaint you hear across the state is property taxes. Whether you call it a wheel tax or whatever you call it, this is another property tax that you're adding on. I understand property taxes are an easy thing to assess. It's basically the low-hanging fruit. So it's an easy thing to go to. And then I also understand you're going to increase the levy. Well, I imagine the levy will get increased on the wheel taxes too. Pam had a lot of numbers that she presented you. I'd like to present you some of my numbers. Here's what I pay on property tax. Ag Society, about $90. Ag Society JPA, $177. County Library, $1,012. I haven't stepped in a library in 10 years. You do everything over the internet now. County Jail JPA, $482. Thank God I haven't stepped in that one or any of my family lately either. Or never have, I shouldn't say lately. Public Building Commission, about $1,100. Railroad Safety District, $1,430. There's not a railroad within 10 miles of my place. Lancaster County Government, $17,157.90. For a total of $21,444 or $58.75 a day. You're going to add another $333 a day on me on the wheel tax. And I don't have that many vehicles on wheel tax. Now, if you add into what I rent also, I pay that. Somebody else is paying it, but I pay it through my rent. You can double those figures. So over $100 a day I'll be giving to the county on taxes. So there's some numbers to look at. And Pam had some deal where she had on the farm trucks, on the cause of heavy farm trucks and stuff like that. And I don't know if, does this fancy thing work?
Yes.
How do I?
It's turned on. It'll just take a second.
Oh, okay. Then I have copies.
Okay.
You also.
Thanks.
So if you look, in the 1960s and 70s, our farm operation had a single axle. Oh, upside down?
Rotate.
That way? Okay, there. We're halfway close there. In the 1960s and 70s, we had a single axle truck on our farm. It basically was, to shorten since I don't have a lot of time, we had about 15,000 per axle weight on that. In the 80s and 90s, we thought we were really moving up. We had a tandem axle rear truck. We hauled 550 bushels on that. It was basically 16,333 per axle. Present day, we have two semis on our farm. We haul about 950 bushels. Axle load is about 16,400 per axle. So if you look per axle, we haven't really increased that. Now, if we're hauling 100,000 bushels of corn in the 60s and 70s, that was 285 loads to town. Present day, 105 loads to town because we're hauling a lot more. So we're making less trips on the road than we did. Now bushels have increased. We probably doubled our bushel per acre, so we're probably around 205 trips. That's still 80 trips less than we were making it in the 60s and 70s. So we haven't really increased the traffic. We're also cooperating with the biosolids in the city of Lincoln. They haul out their city, so we're working with the city. They make 1,421 loads delivered on the county roads in a semi every day. So there's synergy that the county and the city have to work for.
I think you need
Are
to
we
wrap up.
out of time?
Yeah.
Okay. I thank you and appreciate you for your time. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, my name's Dustin Antonello. I'm with the Lincoln Independent Business Association, and we are at 620 North 48th Street here in Lincoln. LIBA supports the implementation of a countywide wheel tax to help close the $14 million annual gap for repairs to bridges and roads. Reliable roads and bridges are vital to the economic well-being of Lancaster County. Residents depend on well-maintained infrastructure to get to and from their jobs, school, and local businesses. LIBA first supported a countywide wheel tax to address deteriorating infrastructure in the county when it was considered by the county board in 2005. Since then, the funding gap for bridges and roads has only grown, further necessitating that the county find other sources of revenue to close this gap. The implementation of a wheel tax in the county will put most county residents living outside of Lincoln on an equal footing with Lincoln residents who already pay a wheel tax to fund street repairs within the city limits. Given the wear and tear that vehicles can cause to infrastructure, we believe it is reasonable to require vehicle owners to pay a fee to facilitate the repairs of county roads and bridges. Although LIBA supports the wheel tax, we are disappointed that the creation of another joint public agency is needed to implement it. If the JPA with Waverly and Hickman is established, half of the JPAs in the entire state of Nebraska will exist in Lancaster County alone. LIBA is also disappointed by the lack of transparency in the process. LIBA initially asked the county board to determine whether a wheel tax could be implemented through an interlocal agreement with Hickman and Waverly instead of a JPA. The county board asked the county attorney to conduct a legal opinion on this matter, but refused to share the results with the public, citing attorney-client privilege. In the interest of transparency, we believe the county board should be more forthcoming about all the information at their disposal, especially when new taxes are being proposed on their constituents. We also feel that the decision to create another JPA should be decided by the voters. JPAs are an additional government body and an added level of bureaucracy. Citizens of the county should at least be given the opportunity to make an informed decision at the ballot box on the necessity of creating another government body to implement a wheel tax. We also want to ensure that the additional revenue coming in from the proposed wheel tax is not used in the future to reduce the engineer's budget. The additional revenue coming in from the wheel tax should only be used for roads and bridges. Thank you.
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs of Lincoln Government, which also includes Lancaster County government. We have high concerns of whether you have followed LB 103 for letting the public know about this. I'll read to you the addendum. The resolution or ordinance requires under this section shall only be passed after a special public hearing called for such purpose, and the notice is published. 9 o'clock in the morning at your regular meeting would not appear to meet a special public hearing. So we have grave concerns about whether this has been followed as appropriate. It is a new law, a new addendum to a law. We also have concerns about a JPA being formed. Whether this is going to really be helpful or not to people is another question. They do not protect taxpayers the way that an elected body would be. As I listen to the needs for infrastructure, it can boggle the mind. And it's very sad that this has not been taken care of over the years. There's a real question about, where did the money that you had, this board had, this commission had, what were they spending it on? So we don't feel that this budget is protecting the taxpayer. Lincoln School Board all want their pound of flesh, and you're just adding to it. So we suggest and recommend that you go back to the drawing board and look at redoing your budget for the purpose of not raising taxes on people, the taxpayers.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Kringle, 13,000 Old Cheney Road, just representing myself, I suppose, our family. I agree with what we've heard. I understand there's a real need, and I want to thank you for the job you do. And I want to be very clear that I am on your side, and I hope that you will be on my side. These people here, we're all in this together. So any criticisms that I make, please understand they're not pointed. They're not for the sake of being mean-spirited. I have been self-employed most of my life. As we've heard, this wheel tax will be devastating, and then any other new taxes we have to do to meet these shortfalls. I have had illnesses and injuries that to my little business as a one-horse show were devastating. I have never missed a payment. I've never welched on a deal. I know many people in business, and in business, sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not so great. But the businesses that do the best have an owner, a proprietor that are very, very involved, that are there every day, that are invested emotionally and intellectually. We have a problem, obviously, from what I'm hearing, and I want to encourage you to be there every day. I want to encourage you to be emotionally and intellectually invested, because the problem needs to be solved from someplace besides throwing more money at this. I've always figured out a way to get it done, and I'll bet most of these people behind me have found out a way to get it done, and we've never, at least for myself, stuck my hand in someone else's pocket. So that's not a criticism. That's how government works. But I think you've heard we've had more than enough taxes. We are in this together. I will mow my own ditches. I'll fill my own holes in the shoulder alongside the roads. I'll do what it takes. Please do whatever you can to not charge us more taxes. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Edmondson and members of the board. My name is Steve Mossman. I'm an attorney with the Mattson Ricketts Law Firm here in town. My address is 134th South 13th Street, Suite 1200. And I'm here today representing the Lancaster County Farm Bureau. You've heard from some of their members about this, but the basic issue that they have is fairness. They obviously realize that the ridges and roads need some repair, but their taxes have continued to go up in terms of their property taxes, and it's at a real crisis point for them. We've got information that shows that property taxes in Lancaster County on ag ground went up 209% in the last 10 years and only rose 33% on residential and 41% on commercial in the county. And so you've heard about the numbers, $3,400 a year in added taxes. And basically, we don't think that the county couldn't do this by themselves. And so entering into a JPA, avoiding the vote of the people that would be required for the county to adopt a sales tax is a bad proposal. There are also some constitutional concerns that might arise if the JPA goes this route. Just feel strongly that if the county feels that a JPA is the right route, that be sent to a vote of the people and not just a vote of this board and the city councils in Hickman and Waverly. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board has. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Jim Stewart, 8909 Saltillo Road, Lincoln, and I made it on that dangerous road. We definitely have a problem here. It's occurred over the last 40 years due to a lack of maintenance, and you're just kind of having to bite the bullet now to do something. I've lived on that farm since 1963, my dad before that and my grandpa before that, and we farm and truck. We have commercial trucks. I'm going to pay about $400 a year, and this wheel tax on a commercial truck, I'll put on 50 to 70,000 miles a year. On my farm truck, I'm going to pay $200, and I put on maybe 800 miles a year. That's my biggest problem. We've got about 25 cars, trucks, trailers, and it's not, there is no fair tax. It's what you pay and I don't. It's the only fair tax there is. We all know that. But I don't put hardly any miles on most of my vehicles because I have quite a few of them. If this was a sales tax, if I choose to buy a brand new car, I pay a lot of sales tax. If I choose to buy an older car, I pay less. If I choose to drive this thing I drove for 20 years, I have a choice on that. On this, I have no choice. And I don't like the new layer of government. Bureaucracy doesn't run really efficient normally, and I don't see it happening again. And the other thing was mentioned earlier is a vote of the people. There is none. It's just whatever the people on this board decide they want to do, and they don't have to answer to anybody. That's one of my bigger issues, and then the other one, like I say, the fact that we drive our vehicles very few miles and still going to pay a lot of tax, and people in Lincoln, well, they don't pay it. Well, what's the difference? They're paying Lincoln tax on Lincoln stuff. I don't use their streets a lot. They use my roads. It's kind of the way it is, but thank you very much.
Good morning. Mary Moser. I live at 6800 West Panama Road at Hallam. I'm one of them from the southwest quadrant that gets very, very little notice when it comes to road maintenance. I was asked to come here by some of the residents down there. I wasn't aware of the meeting until Sunday night, but I did look it up and do a little research on it. As I'm driving my road this morning, I'm thinking, okay, you guys are going to tax us farmers another $1,400 to $3,000. I'm already paying almost $11,000 to the county to maintain our roads. I have no access from our fire department to get to our road because we have dirt roads, we have closed bridges, we have roads that have very little maintenance. I don't know if the pictures I took this morning will come up, but a lot of this is due to neglect. The money you have now is not being used right. You aren't maintaining the roads you have now. Had you done that, you wouldn't be in this predicament. One of the bridges that is closed, so-called bridges, got closed right before harvest in October of 17. It's been closed 2 years now. It's our main access to get our grain to the elevator. So now we have to wind around and try to find a non-dirt road to get the grain to where it needs to go. This bridge is technically could be a box culvert. It doesn't need to be a bridge, but it's closed. And I didn't see on that map, and I don't know if you guys have it, if that's going to be fixed. It's between 56th, Southwest 56th and Southwest 70 or 42nd on West Panama Road. It's got a huge bridge that covers the creek. This is just a little tributary that feeds into it. I've got pictures of it if anybody wants to look at them. I just don't understand, you know, this happened many years ago. You guys say you're going to fix things and do things, so I'm going to go to a different aspect now of this. So back in 1968, the road between Centerville and Denton Road was widened. It was widened to put a paved road in. It was on the 5-year plan. It's still widened, but there is no paved road. So all of this was big, dreams. You guys said you were going to take care of these roads. That road is highly traveled, highly, highly traveled. It's a washboard road. It has now finally concrete or whatever you want to call it, a paved road up to Bennett Road. The rest of it is not paved. And another question I do have is, well, how do you get the money to keep paving all of these side roads over and over that don't need it, and you can't fix a small bridge so that we can have access to go to schools? The buses can't even get to our students. It makes absolutely no sense, and I don't see how this is going to help by taxing us again. Thank you.
My name is Marlo Mink. I live out in the Kramer Creek area, and it's just in Lancaster County, about 2 miles. I'm close to where Mary says that bridge is out, and there's times when I go that direction too, but not often. But it seems like most of the money that is talked about being spent is up here near Lincoln, 148, 60th, and doesn't seem like the bridges or the things that are important to us are of any concern here. Another thing is I have old vehicles on the farm. My total licensing bill and tax for about 20 different things, between cars, pickups, grain trucks, a couple trailers, is $798. I hate to guess on 20 different things what the wheel tax would do if it quadrupled or more than that. And I can't afford a farm economy the way it is. It seems like some of these vehicles don't get 50 miles a year. I'm close to the elevator. It's just mainly to be legal on the farm when I haul grain from the field to the bins or something like that. And most of the time, these vehicles don't get used hardly at all. But you try to be legal as you can, but it's getting harder to be legal. It seemed like for use, the amount of use that these vehicles put on the road, the miles, is next to nothing. A fairer way of doing it would be like a fuel tax per mile driven. It kind of corresponds to the amount of use you get out of the road, and I know that might be a hard thing to administer, but at least it would sound more fair than this wheel tax.
1 minute.
And so I know it would be a difficult thing to do, but I would sure like to see something that would be fair. And like I said, I got a lot of different vehicles, but I'm an army of one to try to get things to and from the field myself, and it's very hard to do. So I have more things that when I got the combine out there, I can switch trucks when one gets full, and it's the only way I can do it. And it sounds like this is just could be putting me out of business because the farm economy is not supporting me the way it is. Thank you for your listening, and I hope we can find a fair way to do this, because this axle does not seem like it's fair for the low-use vehicles and that I'm running. It doesn't sound like a good application to me.
Okay. I think that's it then. Or? Oh.
My name is David Schwaniger. I live at 28500 Southwest 14th Street, Martell. I'm between Hallam and Martell, right along Hallam Road. And we have a bridge closed a mile and a quarter north of me and a quarter mile east, and it's been closed a couple of years now. And I do agree these bridges need to be changed or need to be fixed, and roads need to be maintained, because it does limit our access to fields, to markets. It's gotten really ridiculous, but I'm tired of being the target all the time. The target in the state is the farmer. We're 1.5% of the population. We can never vote any of these property taxes off of us. And this is just another really gone awry example of property taxes. At least our property taxes on farm ground is supposed to be based on value. This is not based on value or use. It's based on tonnage. I need to carry tonnage on pickups to cover any load in a trailer that I pull with that pickup, unless I have tonnage on the trailer, and it's not economically viable to do that. So I have 10-ton tags on both of my pickups, which between the two of them have a combined mileage of 575,000 miles. This is the age of vehicles I'm running, because the farm economy is in the tank. But this Nebraska tax system has gone so completely off the rails, and here's just another horrible example. And I noticed in Pam Dingman's main focus was South 68th and 148th Street. Why do you think those two need so much money? Because that's where Norris School and Hickman is. It's because where Waverly and Waverly School is. We need to start taxing people that use those roads, and use them a lot. All these people taking their kids to school that I'm supporting massively with, I don't have any kids, and of the 3/4 I own, I've sent over $100,000 to Norris School in the last 4 years. Why don't any of you sitting behind any of these desks think what that'd be like to write $27,000 just to your local school and you haven't had any income for 4 years? Let that sink in, what that's like to write that check and sign the bottom of it. That's how bad the farm economy is, and here we're just getting hit with another tax that's just going to kill us again. And something needs to be done, but this is not right. And Dave Nielsen made a very valid point. Our axle loads are not higher than they were in the 60s. Pam made some very compelling illustrations of semis. Oh, we're an easy target. We have these big trucks. My big truck gets about 5,000 miles a year on it. So keep this in mind, please. This has gone so off the rails. And Nebraska, instead of being, when the tourism board came up with this, not for everyone, it should be in this Nebraska, the tax me state. And it's not for everyone. It's sure as hell not for farmers at all, because people are moving out, and I may be one of them. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right. Well, I thank you for your involvement. I think then that we will move on with the next item on the agenda.
Item number 5, under unfinished business, is a resolution in the matter of vacating portions of West Saltillo Road located in Lancaster County, Nebraska.
Move approval.
I would second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
This is the matter of vacating. Okay, so it's that one, yep, sorry. Flowerday.
Yes.
Yocum?
Yes.
Vest?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Next, under new business, item 6A is a resolution in the matter of recognizing September 2019 as National Preparedness Month.
Come on up, yeah.
Did you want me to read? Do you need me to read the resolution?
Yeah, if you would, please.
Good morning, Jim David Saber, Lincoln, Lancaster County Emergency Management Director. I appreciate you signing this resolution each year, recognizing September as National Preparedness Month. Each year they identify weekly themes, and moving through the month of September, that's what my staff and I will emphasize. I've got some savvy volunteers who handle our social media outlets, so we'll be pushing this information to share it in a timely manner. Preparedness is one of the things that on a daily basis through public outreach and education I'm always interested in engaging as many people as possible. When we have the recognition of September as National Preparedness Month, I do everything I can to emphasize that. So I'll answer any questions you have, but as I said, moving forward, we will promote this as we have done in the past.
Good, thank you. And Madam Clerk, will you go ahead and read the resolution?
Sure. In the matter of recognizing the month of September 2019 as National Preparedness Month, whereas Lancaster County and the City of Lincoln are acutely aware of the need for public preparedness relating to severe weather, flooding, winter storms, and various types of disasters, and whereas the importance of public awareness and education are key elements for a better understanding of those characteristics associated with disaster planning, and whereas September 2019 has been designated as National Preparedness Month to provide a process for the general public to adopt disaster plans for home, school, and the workplace, and whereas Lancaster County desires to join the City of Lincoln and Lincoln Lancaster County Emergency Management in a program to provide information relating to developing a disaster plan for all citizens of Lancaster County, now therefore be it resolved by the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners that September 2019 is hereby recognized as National Preparedness Month, and the Board encourages all persons, organizations, and governmental entities in our community to support the activities surrounding National Preparedness Month.
I move approval.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore?
Yes.
Flowerday?
Yes.
Yocum?
Yes.
Vest?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Jim.
Items 6B, C, and D we will hold until after the public hearings. So we'll move on to item 6E is a letter to Topher Hansen, Centerpoint President CEO, authorizing a conditional release of certain portions of the south 120 feet of the Trabert Hall property.
Move approval.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the letter. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest?
Yes.
Shore?
Abstain.
Flowerday?
Yes.
Yocum?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0 with one abstention. Item 6F is an agreement with National Tactical Officers Association to conduct Rescue Task Force Instructor Certification Training being hosted by the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. The cost of the county is $15,392.
I move approval. Oh, I move approval that you come up and tell us all
I think that's
about
pretty
it.
much what he wanted.
Todd Duncan with the Sheriff's Office, and I'm just here to answer any questions you might have.
Do you know how many officers will be certified as a result of this training?
The course calls for 34 students, enough for 34 students. And this is all being paid for with asset forfeiture money, just for the record. The intent of the class is just to enhance our ability to respond to mass violent attacks on schools and populated centers like that. The main focus is helping us address wounded people and to coordinate with EMS and fire personnel to do that in a more effective manner.
I still move approval.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this agreement. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Yocum?
Yes.
Vest?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Flowerday?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
6G is an agreement with the City of Lincoln to use the Public Safety Training Campus to host the Rescue Task Force Instructor Training on September 20th, 2019 through September 22nd, 2019.
Move approval.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this agreement with the City of Lincoln. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Flowerday?
Yes.
Yocum?
Yes.
Vest?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. 6H is a grant contract with Robert F. Kennedy Children's Action Corps for the Advancing Best Practices in Youth Justice Seminar on August 29, 2019 for the Lancaster County Attorney's Office. The contract amount is not to exceed $2,000.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the grant contract. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. 6I is a contract with Sapp Brothers, Inc. to provide annual supply of lubricants. The term of the contract is September 1st, 2019 through August 31st, 2020, with the option to renew for 3 additional one-year terms. The cost to the county is not to exceed $70,000.
I move approval.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second to approve the contract. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have public hearings. The first public hearing is on Keno Fund projects.
Okay, we'll open this public hearing and begin with the staff.
Dennis, if you would
hang on
raise
just
your
a sec.
hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, good morning. Dennis Meyer, Lancaster County Budget and Fiscal Director. First hearing we are starting with is the Keno Fund. Years ago, when we established the Keno Fund, part of the document set up that we would hold an annual hearing to discuss what we're using that Keno Fund for. So there's really no action on this because it will roll into the actual adoption of the budget. So these numbers are part of the overall county budget. But here's what we're using the Keno Fund budget for this year. In the documents, we're required to take 5% of our receipts and put them into prevention grants. So that is always one. We're going to have $100,000 in there for the website. That's for 2 years based on timing. We have now bumped the East Beltway money up to a little bit over $2.4 million. I'm setting $1,500 aside for roadside memorial. And then this year we're going to actually transfer $1 million out of here into the general fund for property tax relief. When you kind of look towards the bottom, the resolution of stuff out there also says that we really don't allocate the funding until we've actually received it. So what I am budgeting for, that $3.5 million number, is what we've had sitting there at June 30th. The estimated $1.325 that we plan to receive during this fiscal year will be collected, it will sit in our cash reserve, and then it will get budgeted the next fiscal year. So we only budget the money we've got. So that's how this is kind of set up. So that's really our Keno Fund budget.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Do we have anybody else who would like to speak on this subject? If not, I will close the public hearing on the Keno. We'll open the public hearing then for 7B.
And that's Lancaster County's proposed budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. Dennis, why don't we formally swear you in again? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Dennis Meyer, Lancaster County Budget and Fiscal Director. So, budget hearing today. What I want to just kind of address is a couple things. First thing, before I forget, Ms. Kinsey had brought up LB 103, and LB 103 keeps coming up at different meetings. I still feel that Lancaster County is in compliance with that. I think what's kind of confused a little bit is where the legislature started with some ideas and where it ended up. LB 103 still ended up in the property tax request, part of the statutes. Property tax request, we've been doing a special hearing every single year as those statutes have been set up out there. 103 really adjusts those statutes. So in about probably 2 or 3 weeks, I will be back in front of you for another hearing, and it will be to address 103. But everything that we talk about today at this hearing is the same information that will be talked about for that LB 103. Nothing changes from here to there. All the information will be published. This year, the only thing that's really changing is there's some additional numbers we're going to throw out there for the public to see. And to me, the resolution will include those couple extra numbers, but it's still to set the final property tax request. So the changes we're adopting today are going to be the changes that's going to show up during that hearing. That resolution is going to take care of it. So to me, 103 is not changing anything that we're doing from our budget hearing to that special request hearing. So I do feel that we will be in compliance and that we are in compliance. So let's talk.
Dennis, real quick.
Yes.
I presume the county attorney's office is in agreement on that, or?
I mean, and I have talked with Dave Durbin over the days, and we've taken, the resolution that I will eventually forward to Jen will be based off of a sample that the state auditor's office has out on their website to utilize. So I just went through the statutes again and checked off what the state auditor's got to what we've got. I've about got the publication ready. So I think some people just think that this is sitting in a different place than where it's at.
Right.
Okay, so 2020 budget. So what I've got up here today is just kind of a budget overview. What's kind of driving the budget and stuff like that. Eventually, what will happen is I will take this type of document and I will get it out on to our web page. There is a PDF that's out there already of this, so it is sitting out there. Hopefully in a few months down the road, when we get the new website and we keep moving forward with OpenGov, we're going to have the ability to get more information out to the taxpayers so that they have the ability to drill down in really any type of number that they want to. So let's talk about the 20 budget. The proposed budget that was filed was completed using the property tax rate of 28.1576. And at that time, we had projected a 6.5% increase in valuation. The actual valuation that came in at 6.89%. So what really happens with that levy is that levy would then generate an additional $290,699. When we get further down to the adoption, we will talk about what to do with that. Discussion has been right now to move it to the cash reserve. We'll talk about cash reserve in a little bit also. With that 28.1576 levy, that is an increase in the county overall levy by 1.5 cents. Now, to offset that, the Railroad Transportation Safety District's tax rate is going to be reduced by 0.75 cents. So what that really means is that additional 1.5 cents will be cut in half, so the overall increase is at 0.75 cents. Let's talk about what drives the county budget. And budget of expenditures for the overall budget this year is at a little over $200 million. That's about a 3.72% increase in comparison to last year's budget. When you take a look at the categories, you will see Lancaster County is really like most governments out there. Salaries and benefits drive a lot. When we look at the function side, you will see that public safety really is a little over 41% of our overall budget. So we then get into general government at about 21.4, and then Public Works is about a little less than 16%. When we talk about our general fund really drives our property taxes. So our general fund expenditures will be adopted at $122,675,020. That's about an increase of about $6.5 million, which results in about a 5.63% increase. Items that are driving it this year. Lancaster County, along with the City of Lincoln, is implementing a new HR payroll system. Implementation costs for the county itself is approximately $900,000. That's really kind of a one-time deal. Once we get it implemented, then we'll roll forward from there. But we're at the point that where our system is 30 plus years old. It's time, and the process has gone longer than we like, but we're shooting for an April 1 implementation date. Another thing that's driving the cost in the general fund is an additional $3 million that we're going to transfer to the county engineer's budget. We collect the majority of our property tax in the general fund, and then we transfer it to other funds from there. So not only do we have the county engineer, we transfer money over to the crisis center, we transfer money to the noxious weed. There's just a variety of places that we transfer money to. Payroll costs, as I mentioned, with that being such a large piece of the pie, payroll costs are increasing by about 1.9, and part of that is driven by the additional 10 FTEs that we hired mid-year last year. So, at this point in the time, at this point going into this year's budget, there's no additional FTEs, so we will not be dealing with that as we kind of go through the budget. Board of Equalization costs were increased this year because we did a residential revaluation. And then the last one that I just want to mention is, increase in jail costs, about $900,000. When I show you a few numbers, you will see that the jail's budget is at about $26 million. So it doesn't take too much as far as cost of living and stuff like that to really start getting real close to $1 million number pretty fast. Another item that has come into play is on the revenue side. We get always caught up on the expenditure side, but revenues can cause us problems, and they are a little bit this year. Our youth service center, our revenues are decreasing by about $985,000 due to a projected lower number of kids to be housed out there this fiscal year. So good news is fewer kids. Bad news is less money. So we've also got to deal with that. A couple other things that are coming into play. Our general fund balance decreased by about $1.3 million, and so we're really strapped with the type of revenue that we receive at the county level, and any type of reduction anywhere, since property tax is such a large piece of our revenue, any type of decrease just puts that much more pressure on there. Cash reserve. This year we're trying to address some of our cash reserve issues. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends cash reserve be at about 2 months worth of your operating expenditures. So that's about a 16.67%. When you take a look at our general fund cash reserve should be at approximately $19.6 million. Our cash reserve before we do anything was at about $6.19 million. So we're trying to address that this year. And so what we're trying to do is the plan was to bump that by $1.65 million, get it up to about $7.84. And even when you look at that increase, that still only gets us to 6.4%. Now the discussion about possibly moving the 290 there, that bumps us up a little bit, but that 6.4% is probably only really going to go to 6.5, 6.6. So as I've mentioned, cash reserve is an issue this year. It will be an issue next year. It will be an issue probably from here on out that we need to address so that we get ourselves set up better so that we don't have some of the large fluctuations in our general fund to stop it from decreasing by 1.3 million. So it will help us on that end also. So those are the types of items that we're kind of dealing with. FTEs, all that I'm showing there is really over the last 5 years. It's been somewhat stable. When you compare year to year from 20 to 19, it's been real stable. The year before that was where we added the 10 additional FTEs, and the majority of those really kind of all fell under the public safety function. And then the property tax levy, and I really addressed that we're bumping it up, and how the RTSDs will be decreased. So that's kind of really the items I wanted to address this morning.
Okay. Question?
And this information will be available under the budget and fiscal tab.
Yeah, it is. It's actually it's actually out there. It was put out on the website like last Thursday, so it is out there.
The only comment I have is I think the fund balance dropping by 1.3 is the best argument in and of itself of putting the extra 290 just into cash reserves. We made 7.3 million cuts off of budget requests this year. If we overshot one of those by just a touch, and clearly fund balances dropped by 1.3 last year, so it's not impossible we might have overshot one of those cuts. We're going to be happy to have anything in the bank there at all. So.
Okay, any further comments? All right. Dennis, thank you so much. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to the budget? Okay. I feared you would.
Hi, Dustin Antonello again with LIBA. We're located at 620 North 48th Street in Lincoln. LIBA appreciates the hard work of the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners in preparing the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. LIBA recognizes the resource constraints that the county is facing, especially the county engineering department, as it continues to respond to the increased demand for road and bridge repairs. We believe the $3 million in additional funding to repair roads and bridges in the county is justified. However, we do have some concerns about how the increase to the engineer's budget will be paid for. LIBA is opposed to the 75-cent levy increase to the county's property tax levy. Lancaster County residents are already facing steep property tax increases due to this year's residential home revaluation. Home values rose by 10% this year, which means most homeowners would have paid more in property taxes even if the rate had remained the same. The 75-cent levy increase will raise property taxes even higher. Furthermore, the combination of Lancaster County, Lincoln Public Schools, and the city of Lincoln taking the windfall from this year's revaluation will directly lead to a significant increase to the amount of property taxes paid by Lincoln residents. It is hard to believe that the three main property taxing authorities in Lincoln will need every penny from a significant property tax revaluation and then some to fund their respective budgets. LIBA also has concerns about how the 75-cent levy reduction to the RTSD levy rate will affect the 33rd and Cornhusker project. This project is desperately needed to eliminate the hazardous rail crossings along Cornhusker Highway at 33rd Street and Adams Streets. These two crossings have one of the highest exposure ratings and crash rates in Nebraska. Any postponements to this project will delay the safety benefits and increase the project's overall cost, since inflation adds 5% to the construction costs for every year it is delayed. In order to avoid increasing the county's property tax levy, LIBA believes the county board should wait to add more funding to the cash reserves. We understand that the county's cash reserves are low and need to be increased to meet the recommended best practices, but this has been an issue that the county board has chosen to defer action on for years due to other pressing needs. LIBA does not think it would be prudent to add $1.65 million to the cash reserves at a time when more funds are desperately needed for emergency bridge and road repairs, and property taxes are already going up from this year's residential revaluations. Instead, we believe the county board should wait to add to the cash reserves and use that money to avoid a levy increase. Once the county engineer has made significant progress with bridge and road repairs, using the budgeted funds and the additional revenue from the proposed wheel tax, we believe the county board will be in a better position to add to the cash reserves. Finally, I would just like to reiterate the comments I made on the wheel tax proposal. The county board has made it clear that a levy increase, a reduction to the RTSD levy, and a wheel tax are necessary to fund repairs to roads and bridges. If the county board chooses to go this route, it would be disingenuous to use the wheel tax revenue to offset any other areas of need in future budgets. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Before we get to that point, I apologize. I forgot to swear you in.
Oh,
Can I
that's
do
okay.
that now after the fact?
Sure.
You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony that you gave it was the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Dustin.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else come forward, I will close the public hearing. And let's return then to items 6B, 6C, and 6D.
Item 6B is a resolution in the matter of final allocation of levy authority to all political subdivisions subject to Lancaster County levy authority.
Okay, this resolution really takes the 15-cent allocation into effect. So we've talked about the 15 cents that's allocated out. The subdivisions that are involved is the Ag Society, the fire districts, the PBC, the RTSD, those political subdivisions that filed their request with us. We've made sure that they fit within that 15-cent allocation. This resolution will show those dollar amounts and the projected tax rate. We will send that out to them, and it gives them the ability to then finish up their budget process. So it's just the next step for them to be able to finish up their budget process. But we have no issues with the 15 cents.
Move approval?
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 6C is a resolution in the matter of exceeding the budgeted restriction funds limit for the 2018-19 fiscal year by an additional 1%.
This resolution deals with what I call the lid on restricted funds. We talked about the 15 cents. We've dealt with the 50-cent levy limit portion of it. We've then also got the lid on restricted funds. And the lid really says you can collect so much in property tax and state aid in a given year. Now, 20 years ago, we set our base amount, and then the statutes say that base amount can grow by 2.5%, and then by an additional 1% if voted on by the governing body. Now, you know, this additional 1% allows that base amount to grow, but it doesn't automatically mean anything is going to happen as far as, oh, that's an additional 1% on property tax or anything like that. We've already had that discussion. You make that decision on an annual basis, what you're going to do with property tax. All this does is allows for that base amount to grow, that 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, that if we need it, we've got it. Because if you don't take the action today, you can't go back and get that action back later on. So I believe it's just the right decision to keep that base amount growing because we've already made all the decisions that we needed to for the budget anyway.
Questions?
Approval.
And I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 6D is a resolution in the matter of approving the Lancaster County budget for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Okay, so on this resolution today, I always include on attachment A the changes that have taken place since the end of July when I filed the proposed budget with what's in the budget that's going to be adopted today. Couple changes that I've got noted here. The 290, 669, I've got that moving into the cash reserve. The other one that's on here is an item that when I put that proposed budget together, I only included one piece of it in there, so this is picking up the other piece. Pam's got some monies in her funds for monies that could possibly come from FEMA that we build into there. I did not build in the other part where we bring it into our grants fund and then transfer it over. So that 440 is just picking up that second piece. So it's really just kind of cleaning it up.
Okay. I would move approval.
Well,
move approval second, then discussion.
And then you can
Or go ahead.
I guess I'm not sure how that'll work to get the language in, but can I?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. I move to approve the proposed budget with the understanding that the additional $3 million that we are transferring to funds 21 and 22 is for this budget cycle only. In light of the record size of this increase, I feel that the board should have freedom in future budgets to evaluate the needs on a year-by-year basis.
And I would second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Amundson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Those wishing to speak on items relating to county business on the agenda may do so at this time.
Anyone here to speak during public comment?
If you could please sign in.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Presentation.
I don't know, can you plug in a USB to that? We could see if it'll work.
No, I should be able
I know nothing.
That is not mine.
I do enjoy the new town. One of the old towns do it.
The USB.
Flaherty. What?
Yeah, what's going on?
He's one of yours, right?
Friend of yours.
There's an opening.
Doesn't clear for me, but no.
Yeah.
Under the 3-minute or 5-minute time?
5 minute.
Okay. So you will have 5 minutes, and Monet will give you a 1 minute to wrap up.
Perfect. Thank you.
Comments, yep.
All right. My name is Zach Renshaw, and I am the chairman of the Doane University Climate Reality Campus Corps project. I'm here today to talk about 100% committed. Climate change is affecting the soil health here in Nebraska, and the health and vitality of soil everywhere from the smallest backyard garden to the largest Midwestern farm plays an integral role in food production, and it's threatened by the climate crisis. Basically, a little one-on-one on the climate crisis. The more carbon pollution in the air, the more the sun's energy gets trapped as heat. These rising global temperatures disrupt the natural systems, leading to more and more extreme weather events like severe droughts and flooding that we've seen last year and this past summer. Soil health is dependent upon the water cycle. The climate crisis has fundamentally altered the water cycles around the world, which has shifted precipitation patterns and increased evaporation. Rainfall has become either increasingly abundant or in desperately short supply relative to the long-term averages. Extreme downpours can lead to runoff and erosion because the ground simply isn't able to absorb the precipitation at the rate that it's falling. This runoff can pick up pollutants from the landscape and carry them to nearby rivers and other waterways. Frequent droughts and enhanced evaporation are not only killing off vital soil ecosystems necessary to grow healthy crops, they are also leaving less water to dilute even relatively common pollutants in reservoirs. However, there is a solution. U.S. solar PV capacity is exploding across the United States, specifically in photovoltaics and concentrated solar power. Photovoltaics are basically solar panels that you see on buildings and across the county. But the most important fact about solar in the United States is that the levelized cost of energy is actually decreasing compared to coal. The levelized cost of energy is the assessment of all costs to build, operate, and maintain a power generating asset over its lifespan, divided by the total energy output that that technology produces. According to the consulting firm Lazard, even without subsidies, utility-scale solar and wind are now cost competitive with conventional generation technologies, particularly coal. Industry statistics show that the price to install an average-sized residential solar system has fallen from $40,000 in 2010 to under $18,000 today before incentives. Furthermore, the price of lithium-ion batteries has decreased significantly, and the global cumulative storage capacity is projected to increase significantly. Furthermore, besides solar, including solar and wind, these renewable energies are putting individuals to work. The latest National Solar Jobs Census shows significant expansion of the industry over the past 8 years, suggesting that solar will continue to be a source of stable, well-paying careers in Lancaster County. From 2013 to 2018 alone, the solar economy grew 6 times faster than the U.S. economy, adding over 100,000 jobs to the national workforce. 1 in every 124 jobs created in the United States during this time span was in solar. Today, over 240,000 Americans work in the solar industry, with the median wage for installers at $32 hourly, for mid-level workers. Among them are hundreds of veterans provided free training and apprenticeships through the federal Sunshot Initiative. According to the International Renewable Energy Agency, onshore wind electricity costs have dropped almost a quarter since 2010. That means that on average, the cost of wind per kilowatt hour is about 6 cents for the US dollar around the globe. Alternatively, fossil fuels fall between 5 cents and 17 cents per kilowatt hour. Furthermore, wind energy is putting people to work. In 2017, more than 1.15 million people were employed by the wind industry around the globe. In the United States, wind turbine service technician is projected to be the second fastest growing job of the nation through 2026, right behind solar PV installer. In 2017, an American wind turbine technician could expect to be paid over $53,000 per year, or roughly $28 per hour. Furthermore, from some more economic benefits of renewable energies, the city of Santa Cruz, California shaved $73,000 annually off its electric bill thanks to the solar carports it erected over the city parking lots at City Hall and the police department. The excess power over the canopies generated in the summer is credited at peak rates to offset power costs per night, basically meaning that they're generating so much electricity that they're giving it away in the evenings because they're generating so much electricity. Over their expected 25-year lifespan, those two modest, no-maintenance carports will reap the city several $1 million in savings. So today I'm here to talk to you and urge this board to consider the benefits of renewable electricity, not only to grow jobs in Lancaster County and grow the economy here, but also save money in the long run. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just want to commend Doane University for taking these steps to combat the climate crisis, and I think it's great. The Planning Commission is likely sometime in the next few months going to be looking at doing a text amendment on solar energy for the county. I would encourage you to come and testify there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for coming, and I believe that we're finished with public comment then.
Okay, we'll move on to announcements. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will meet with the District Court judges on Tuesday, August 27, 2019 at 12 p.m. in Courtroom 30 of the Hall of Justice. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold a staff meeting on Thursday, August 29, 2019 at 8:30 a.m. in the Bill Luxford Studio of the County City Building. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold its next regular meeting on Tuesday, September 3, 2019 at 9 a.m. in Room 112 of the County City Building. County Commissioners can be reached at 402-441-7447 or commish@lancaster.ne.gov. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners meeting is broadcast live on Link TV City. For the rebroadcast schedule, visit lincoln.ne.gov. Meetings are also streamed live on Link TV and can be viewed on YouTube.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Vest?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Flowerday?
Yes.
Yocum?
Yes.
Amundson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.